Science is not there to answer mysteries. It is to keep them as mysteries. This is why these bloodline families that I've been exposing all these years, they have made sure that they control the funding and the administration of science.
Sure.
And if you don't sing from the song sheet as a scientist, then your funding stops. You find yourself losing credibility among your peers because you're getting ridiculed and marginalized for saying these crazy things. And therefore, science, mainstream science, as a structure, as an institution, is there to stop the answers coming out. And I know mainstream scientists who are, could scream with frustration because they think, well, I'm between the devil and the deep blue sea here. If I pursue where I sure the answers lie, I lose my funding and all that stuff. And if I don't, I'll never find the answers, but I'll get me funding. And what I say to those people is, look, when you're on your deathbed and you're about to leave this reality, what will you feel good about yourself because you pursued the truth despite the consequences? And it's amazing if you pursue the truth and you get lots of challenges. It's amazing how you find ways round them. Or what are you gonna feel about yourself if you're on that same deathbed thinking, well, I didn't actually impact on the world at all. I just got a bloody good living for a few years by acquiescing my truth to this establishment structure that has been created totally to stop truth coming out.
Sure. And and you talk about people's perspective being widened more, and it's so very true. I look at this world, David, from a whole different perspective than I'm actually amazed. I sit back and I look at myself as when I was a young girl and how I viewed the world in those days. And when you think about how your future is going to look to you, you just can't fathom, you can't understand until you get to the point where everything shifts around you. And as I'm looking at this world the way that it's constructed, there isn't anything, not one single thing in a day-to-day basis that we as human beings, for the most part, experience that isn't very well constructed, laid out, planned out, and in total control of the actions and our day-to-day life of the human being. It's been just absolutely fascinating as I look at this and I go, there isn't one single space that does not, that this construct, I call it the construct, the matrix, the control mechanisms have not integrated themselves so completely, so wholly into the human experience. It's not even, it's just amazing. I mean, even from how do we eat, when do we eat, that you have to go here to do that, and this whole thing with the whole money situation, where every day more and more of the working people, if you will, their money is being taken away from them, from new laws and new taxes, and we have to have funding for this and funding for that and funding for everything, right? And it has gotten to be such a vicious cycle. And they're also, you spoke about that earlier, about how all of this is happening, and it's like they're stepping up their game to try to get more and more and more of it. And I just see it as an extreme implosion upcoming. I really do, with this whole construct thing.
It isn't. It is an implosion, but like I was saying, the book is controversial, and one area where it's going to be extremely controversial is how I explain why what you quite rightly described is A, happening, and B, possible. And it's interesting, like, I've got this theme of the last 20 years at the moment because it is, so close to the 2 decades. But I have realized in the writing of this book how all the different things that have happened to me in the last 2 decades have all dovetailed and have all made a contribution to what I'm writing in this book. And these themes have been that we live in a virtual reality universe that has been hacked into by a manipulative, controlling force. And it's exactly the same principle as the fact that you can go on the internet in most parts of the world, and you can go anywhere on that internet that you choose to go. At least you can at the moment. But if you go to China, you can't. The Chinese computer system has been firewalled off so that Chinese people can only access part of that collective reality we call the internet, and not vast swathes of it. Now, I have realized over the years through various connected ways that is the situation that we face in this reality. How I've explained it in the book is this: the suns within this universe interact with the black holes. I think some German scientists have established, after a long project, that there's a black hole at the center of this galaxy. It absolutely fits. Because out of the black holes comes the vibration. And that vibration stimulates photon release from these packets of energy, which is the basis of light. It's photon release from the suns, in our case, of course, our sun. And this vibrational resonance goes through a cycle. And this vibrational resonance, as it changes and moves, it elicits different forms of information from the sun in our case. And so as this vibration changes in this cycle, which eventually comes round and back to the start, it is changing the reality that people are experiencing as a result. And this is where the whole ancient principle in so many ancient cultures, if not all of them, of cycular time comes in, like the yugas in the India area of the world, the Hindu area, etc. What the Mayans talked about with the cycles of time, the cycles and the ages. These are created by the vibrational changes coming out of the black holes, and as this cycle moves, and it's vast, and we come in and experience a bit of it, so we think we're going from past through present to future, but we're actually in what I call the time loop. This is what the name of my books a few years ago was called Tales from the Time Loop, and now I'm beginning to see more and more of how it works. And so as the vibration changes, we move into what people call another age, another era, another epoch. And so there's one age which is known in many cultures as the golden age, when everything's kind of, wonderful and all the rest of it. And then there are other ages which are much more challenging. And these are in the cosmic game ways of experiencing different things. Because when we're choosing to experience them from a level of consciousness, disembodied consciousness, we're seeing that experience in a completely different way to when we're actually experiencing it here.
Sure.
We are now at the point where we are moving into a new era, a new epoch in this cycle. And that's why the vibration is changing. And suddenly the reality is changing. The sense of reality is changing. And what we're seeing is a change in the information, the base construct information of this reality coming from the sun. And so we're starting to decode different information. Now, this is an area where it's going to be really controversial when the book comes out. I am saying this, staggering as it may seem, I'm saying that process that I've just described has been hacked into from the moon. I'm saying the moon is not a heavenly body as we think it is. In fact, there were two Russian scientists in the 70s who produced a whole paper saying exactly the same and explaining why. Very, very compelling. And that the moon actually is where this whole